She says she saw Biggie Smalls in hell. We really got to talk about this video that's going around on social media. There's it's going viral. I don't know if it's here on YouTube. I saw it on TikTok. And in this video, this woman, I want to say, judging by her looks, she's probably in her mid to late 50s, possibly early 60s. This woman is saying that she saw Biggie Smalls in hell. Now, I'm going to retell her story because in her story, she didn't say everything in sequential order. She's being interviewed by a gentleman and he's asking her questions. And then she's speaking on what she saw, what she experienced. Then she goes back to the beginning about how everything actually started. So I'm going to retell her story from beginning to end. I'm going to tell it in the order that it was meant to be told in. And then I'm going to get into why I'm doing this video here today. Okay. You guys already know, if you've ever taken the time to visit my YouTube homepage, that I am into metaphysics. I am very spiritual by nature. And some of the things that she referenced in her testimony kind of struck me, and I felt the need to speak about it here on my platform. Okay. So as the video starts, this woman, she's being interviewed by a male interviewer. And he asks her, name some of the other things that she saw while she was in hell. Her story starts with her being at a wax museum. Okay. I'm not familiar with too many wax museums. There's one in Baltimore, Maryland, I can remember visiting when I was in maybe elementary school, middle school. Um, there's a new one that was built in Washington, D.C., near the monument. And the one that I've actually been to is in New York City. It's in Times Square. It's called Madame Tussauds Wax Museum. And a wax museum, for those of you who may have never been or are unfamiliar, it's a museum and it's full of exhibits of life-sized wax figurines that are made to emulate celebrities, whether they be actors, whether they be entertainers, athletes, musicians. They have a bunch of different exhibits of wax figurines, and these figurines, they're very spot on. If they were made by a good wax figurine artist, they look very much like who they're meant to emulate. She says she's in a wax museum, and as she's going through the hip hop and music exhibition, where they have all the music icons and people of that nature, she came across a wax figurine of Biggie Smalls. Now, Biggie Smalls was a rapper, and she said she was a huge fan of Biggie Smalls back when his music was popular. Now, mind you, this woman, if I had to guess, she was in her mid 50s to early 60s. So that kind of lines up with the time that his music was very popular, her being around the appropriate age to where she would be enjoying it. She said that she used to go to clubs and listen to his music. Her favorite song of his was One More Chance, the kind of like the remix version, which is kind of ironic because that's the song that actually turned me onto his music and made me become somewhat of a fan at the time. But anyway, she says she's in that exhibit viewing his wax figurine, and because it's a museum, it's not uncommon for it to be packed with people that are standing around these different exhibits of these wax figurines, and they're taking pictures of them. Obviously. Um, and she said this young lady came up to her and asked her if she wouldn't mind taking a picture of her and the wax figurine of Biggie Smalls. And she was like, "This is my husband right here." Now, the lady said that she was somewhat thrown off when that young lady said it, kind of like, how are you going to be a child of God and you're talking about this man right here is your husband? And I'm assuming that she meant to say, how are you going to be a Christian and you're saying that this man right here is your husband? Because if you're here, if you're living on this earth, we're all children of God. You know what I mean? Whether you choose to believe in him or not, we are all children of God. So I'm assuming that's what she meant. She said, she asked the lady, or she didn't ask her, she said to herself, how is this woman a child of God if she's talking about Biggie Smalls is her husband? So she says she proceeds to take the picture. She gives the phone back to the young lady. And then she says, probably about, I say maybe about an hour and a half later is when the story took a twist. That's when, everything started to happen for her. Now I don't know if she was at a hotel, if she was back at her place, because I don't know where she was when this took place. I didn't see the interview from the beginning all the way to the end. I saw maybe a 5 minute version of it on TikTok, the most interesting portion of it. She says she's back at her place, and she says she was pulled out of her body. It was an outer body experience. I'm not sure if she astral projected or not, but she said she had an outer body experience, not a dream, not a hallucination. Okay, she said that she had an outer body experience, and she was in hell, standing next to Jesus Christ Himself. And she said that when she arrived there in hell, and she was standing next to Jesus. I'm assuming Jesus took her to hell based on everything that had transpired within the last hour. I don't know. But she said that she was in hell standing next to Jesus Christ. And she said she remembers seeing right in front of her was this like really big cave, like large opening to a cave. And it was like pitch black inside, like blacker than any darkness you've ever seen. It was blacker than that. You couldn't see anything in this cave. Um, and it wasn't for like a few moments that she started to see like eyes that started to open up in this cave. Like a whole bunch of eyes were opening up everywhere, and she realized that this was a cave was in fact full of demons, and these were their eyes. Like you wouldn't even have known they were there had they not opened their eyes. She said at the entrance of the cave there were these giant demons, like maybe 13 feet tall or so. Like if I remember her saying correctly, like they were really giant sized demons, and they were holding like she says poles, but I assume she means that they were holding like spears. Or okay. And she said it was one on each side of the entrance to the cave. She says as moments pass, she starts to be able to have a little bit of vision beyond the darkness of the cave, and she can see that there's like bars in there, like a jail cell, like a jail cell in hell is what she said she saw. And the bars were kind of embedded into the ground and embedded into the ceiling of the cave. And she said as she continued to look, she saw hands like clutching the bars, like holding the bars, like kind of like a prisoner would do. And she said she saw Biggie Smalls on the other side of this jail cell. And when she saw him, the first thing she thought was to turn to Jesus and asked him, "Why is this man here?" And she said that Jesus' response was, "This man is here because he told me that he didn't need me." And that's when the interviewer was like, "Okay, okay." And she was like, "Yeah, so Biggie Smalls used to, he went to a fetish priest." And that's where I got lost, because I had never heard of a fetish priest before. I didn't know what she was talking about. And the interviewer didn't either, because he asked her to repeat herself, like, what did you just say? A what kind of priest? And she was like, "A fetish priest." She's like, "Have you never heard of a fetish priest?" And he's like, "No, I have no idea what you're talking about." And she's like, "Okay, so Biggie Smalls went to a fetish priest. And what a fetish priest is it's essentially it's a witch doctor. And what they do is you go to them and you ask them for, I don't know, whatever you want, fame, or maybe you want fortune, or maybe you want, I don't know, somebody to fall in love with you. I guess whatever it is that your heart desires, you go to a fetish priest. The fetish priest, you pay them for it, and then they incant something for you. They'll take a charm of some kind, whether it be a ring or an earring, a necklace, or rocks, and they'll incant them with, I guess, like magic, or energy. I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's magic of some kind, and then they'll give it to you and give you instructions on what you need to do with it in order to get what it is that you are asking for. So, in this particular example, she gave Biggie Smalls charms that she had incanted and told him to carry them in your pocket, and they will attract to you the fame and the riches that you desire. And when he started carrying these stones with him, these charms, then he started to attract money. He started to attract fame. He started to become more popular. And it was at that moment that he realized that I'm gaining all of this because of these charms that I received from this that I received from this fetish priest. And as a result, he turned away from God, even telling God that I don't need you anymore. Now I'm a king, which I I never heard this interview, but she said she was a fan of Biggie Smalls. So apparently she either heard this interview where he said this, or perhaps she read it somewhere. I'm not sure how she got this information because I had no knowledge of it. But I'm assuming she was a bigger fan than me, so I assume she knows what she was talking about. So anyway, that was the reason why he was in hell. Not particularly because of the charms, but because he said that he didn't need God or Jesus anymore. And apparently these witch doctors are incanting these charms with demonic energy. So while you may be attracting whatever it is that your heart desired, whatever it is that you paid the witch doctor to incant the charm with, the witch doctor is actually incanting the charm with a demon, and it is actually the demon that is giving you what you need. And she was like, in his arrogance, he refused God and Christ in favor of these charms that he had received from a witch doctor. So as the story continues, she's like, yeah, Biggie Smalls was in this jail cell. And, after I asked God why he was there and he explained it to me, he was like, I noticed that Biggie Smalls' stomach was kind of lit up. And by lit up, it looked like maybe somebody had placed a bomb in his stomach and he was like burning from the inside out, not from the outside in, but whatever was in his stomach, there was a flame growing and he was burning from the inside out. Okay. Then she said that's when um the demons, the two demons that were like at the front, like the 13-foot ones that were holding the spears, she said that's when they started to speak. And she said they were speaking in some language that she didn't particularly understand, but she kind of knew what they were saying based on what was taking place. And she said one of the demons like held up his spear and he pointed into the cell, and he was telling the other demon essentially, take him out. It's time for him to be tormented again. Um, so that's when they took him out of the cell. And she said when he came out of the cell, it was like a fake crown, like went on his head, and like a fake, like a cape, or I almost said robe, but kind of like a cape, like the things that kings wear, the cape and a crown, because he said that he was a king. Like a fake crown and cape appeared over him, like as a mockery of what he had, why he turned away from God. And they took him to this like giant life-size juicer. And for those of you who are into health and nutrition, a juicer is essentially, you put your fruits and vegetables into it and it separates the juice from the rest of the flesh of the fruit or vegetable. Now, she was explaining that we have a physical body and we have a spiritual body. And um, your spiritual body, when you're in hell, feels everything that your physical body would experience here on earth while you're living. So your spiritual body in hell has bones, joints, blood vessels, ligaments, everything. Like everything that your physical body has, your spiritual body has it when you're in hell. So they took him out of the cell and they took him to this giant juicer, and then they put him in the juicer. And if you guys know, a juicer has a lot of blades and all type of stuff in there, and it chops and it cuts and it smashes, it does all of that. And she's like, he felt every bit of that. Blood vessels being ripped, muscles being torn, bones being crushed, skull being crushed. He felt every bit of that. And then when it was over with, it was like his body came out kind of like a pile, like a pulp, like mush. And then like moments later, his body just magically reconstructed himself. And then the two demons grabbed him and they put him back in the jail cell. And the moment they closed it, it was like his stomach lit up again and he was burning from the inside out. It was like a cycle that was just being repeated. Whenever it was time for him to be tormented, however often that was, it would be the exact same cycle that would repeat itself. And she said that's when she was returned to her body and was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. The fact that I just saw that, it was almost like everything that transpired from her arriving in that wax museum and seeing his figurine to seeing that whole kind of thing. I guess it was like I used to in some way idolize this particular person. And now I'm being shown where he is and why he is actually there because of how strong she was in her faith, her religious beliefs. And man, that was a wild story, man. I mean, when I saw it, I was like 100% like engrossed in this thing. Now, the reason that it bore so much interest to me, for those of you who have taken any time to view my homepage here on my YouTube channel, you guys know that I am into spirituality. I am into the metaphysical and things of that nature. I actually carry healing crystals with me. She called them rocks or charms, but I assume she meant healing crystals. I'm gonna show you guys something really quickly. I'm sitting in my car right now, as you guys already know. Here's a bag of healing crystals. I keep these things pretty much everywhere because they're a part of how I practice my different forms of spirituality. And for those of you who don't know what I mean, I generally practice traditional spiritual practices. While I do believe in God, I believe God is I think of God as like the supreme source of energy from which all energy comes. Those of us who are into spirituality and metaphysics, usually that's how we experience God. And that's not to say that there is no negative energy, because obviously if there's positive energy, there has to be negative energy as well. But I believe that God is where all energy comes from. So the spiritual practices that I deal with, a lot of times they involve these these healing crystals. Now I know she called them rocks or charms, but me having an understanding of what she was talking about, the moment she said he carried them around in his pocket, I knew she had to be talking about healing crystals. Now we call them crystals because that's actually what they are. They're crystallized minerals from the earth. Um, but yeah, I practice feng shui, and in feng shui involves arranging things a certain kind of way in your house, and sometimes it involves healing crystals. Now, feng shui is a Chinese traditional spiritual practice. I also practice hoodoo, and hoodoo, as you know, is ancestral worship. Now, it's not necessarily needed with hoodoo, but in hoodoo, you need an element, you need an object that represents four different elements to activate your altar. And for the earth element, I choose to use healing crystals because of the energy that they bestow, the therapeutic benefits to them. I'm not sure if you guys had an opportunity to check out a video that I did on my channel entitled "Does This Ever Happen to You Late at Night?" And in that video, I'm detailing a paranormal, supernatural type experience that I had. And it was one of the events that kind of sent me in the direction of these healing crystals. Now, I won't go into depth about what took place in that particular video. For those of you who are interested, you can find that video on my homepage and you'll understand via the story that I tell in that video what it was that actually took place. But, you know, healing crystals, they actually have different benefits depending on the crystal that you have. I actually got, for that particular event, that's when I went out and started getting healing crystals that were designed to absorb negative energy and repel it and protect you against psychic attack. The healing crystal that I'm talking about would be black tourmaline as well as black obsidian, which I had already had. But I overdid it on black tourmaline when I had that experience because I'm like, this is a strange thing to happen to me. It's never happened before. Somebody must be trying to do like some negative spell work on me or something like that. This has to be what this comes from. So I got my black tourmaline, and but the thing is, I never knew anything about a fetish priest or witch doctor incanting these things. I actually never went to a witch doctor or a fetish priest to, excuse me, to get any of these things. I got all of my healing crystals from this metaphysics store that is located in Old Town Alexandria, Virginia, on King Street, known as Sacred Circle, or it was known as Sacred Circle. It's no longer there because I believe, the owner sold the building to someone else, so all the tenants or all the leaseholders had to vacate. But the store Sacred Circle was particularly for people who are spiritual in nature or people who practice the metaphysical. You walk in, and it's got like kind of like this Game of Thrones medieval kind of vibe. And in there, you can buy books on feng shui, hoodoo, voodoo, aliens, supernatural, paranormal things. You can buy books on pretty much anything that falls under the lines of, metaphysical or spiritual realm. You can buy sage, stalks of sage, different types of sage, candles, candle holders. Um, Florida water, all these kind of things that spiritual people are into, you can buy them at this particular store. And I remember specifically the front half of the store on the left, there's three bookshelves that extend throughout the entire front half of the store. And they have every healing crystal you can think of there in different sizes. They have them tumbled, they have them raw. Um, so that's when I really started researching what these crystals are good for, because I was immediately looking for something that was going to repel negative energy and block psychic attacks. And that's how I kind of started my my journey into healing crystals. Now, again, I never received a crystal from another person, which is what was interesting about the story, because she said he received them from a fetish priest, or AKA a witch doctor. I picked my crystals out myself. You go in the store, you know the crystal you want. They're all listed in alphabetical order, and in order of their size, whether you want small, medium, large, whether you want them tumbled or raw. I would always prefer to get them raw if I could, but I would settle for tumbled if that's what they had. And I would simply pick my crystal by waving my hand over top of it, figuring out which one kind of I felt more energy with, more connected with, and that's the crystal that I would take and pay for. Like I said, it wasn't about how attractive the crystal may have been, if that makes any sense. It would be the one that I just felt more energy with. And then I would immediately come home with my crystals, and I would take a stalk of sage, I would light it, and then I would cleanse the crystals in the sage, kind of holding it like such while the sage smoke is engulfing the crystal. And that is intended to clean off any energy that has already been placed on that crystal, because a crystal that's been touched by somebody will in some kind of way have that person's energy on it. That person can receive benefit from that crystal. So whenever you receive a crystal, I was always well studied to understand that you had to clean it to make sure that it didn't have anybody else's energy on it, and that that crystal only had your intentions in it. You know what I mean? So again, when I was hearing her say fetish priest was enchanted by a witch doctor, I'm like, well, I mean, possibly, but that would mean that he just accepted that crystal from somebody else, not knowing what they did with it, or maybe he did know, and he just didn't understand that he has to cleanse it himself and place his own intentions with it, which is what I do. After you clean it with the sage, you place your intentions in it, and then you charge it, depending on what the crystal is. You charge it in the sun, or you charge it in the moonlight, and now it's ready for use. It's ready to do what it needs to do, which for me in that particular case, based on the story I told here on my YouTube channel, was to ward off negative energy and to repel psychic attacks. And that's, like I said, that video is ultimately what started my journey into crystals. That sent me down a rabbit hole where I found out about the Crystal Bible, which is actually a book that you can buy from Sacred Circle, which again is no longer there. But the Crystal Bible was basically a book that listed every crystal known to man in alphabetical order. It would tell you the region of the world where you can find that crystal, the therapeutic effects it would have on a human body, how it's able to assist in aligning your chakras, and the spiritual practice that it would be used for, should it be hoodoo, voodoo, or feng shui. So yeah, yeah, that's how I got into that journey. But like I said, when she spoke about it, it definitely prompted me to be like, wait a minute, are you telling me that when I carry these things, because I have them all over my house, as you can saw, I just held up a bag of them that I keep in my car, because it got heavy keeping crystals in your pocket. And that's what made me identify with the story and made me understand what she was talking about, because even I used to carry these healing crystals in my pocket. But once you have so many of them, because you can carry many of them to do different things, some of them may attract money, some of them may repel negative energy, some of them may increase your intuition, some of them may increase your mind body spirit connection. So it got to a point where every time I came in I researched a crystal that had a benefit that sounded nice to me, I'm like, oh, I think I could use a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I would have them in my pocket. But as you can imagine, that gets heavy, and especially if you're carrying the raw crystals, the ones that haven't been tumbled and polished and smoothed out, they'll start to tear your clothes up. So that's when I came up with the idea of getting these bags and saying I'll just keep them around my house and my car, anything that belongs to me, to protect it from negative energy or somebody sending a psychic attack towards me in any kind of way. And yeah. And for those of you who may be 30 years or younger and are unfamiliar with Biggie Smalls is a rapper who rose to stardom and fame in the early to mid 90s. He was the first artist signed to Bad Boy Records, which is owned by the music mogul Sean P. Diddy Combs. Yes, the same P. Diddy who is currently sitting in jail on all of these different charges about the stuff that goes on at these infamous Diddy parties, which, by the way, I 100% agree with, and 100% believe that he actually did and should be found guilty of. Biggie Smalls and P. Diddy were friends. They actually started the label Bad Boy together, or Diddy started it, and Biggie Smalls was his first artist. Um, as previously mentioned, Biggie Smalls was murdered in 1997. He was friends with another rapper who rose to stardom around the same time that you may be more familiar with, Tupac Amaru Shakur. They were actually friends, and what led to Biggie Smalls' murder was the fact that he and Tupac got into a beef that turned into a nationwide rap war, East Coast versus West Coast. Uh, One night, Tupac was in New York. He was, as I said, he was friends with Biggie Smalls. They have, recorded music together. They freestyle together. They've partied together. So Tupac, who is originally from New York, prior to moving to Baltimore, Maryland, and then to Marin City in California, he was in New York, and Biggie and Puffy were having some type of album release party, recording session. I'm not sure what it was, but they contacted Tupac when they realized he was in New York. They invited him to come to the particular place and party with them, and he agreed. He decided to oblige. Now, when he went to Quad Studios, which is the location where it was being held, he was attacked by some unknown assailants in the lobby. He was shot multiple times and he was robbed. He lost consciousness, and then he woke up in front of Biggie and Puffy, and his immediate reaction was, "Y'all set me up." Now, it's unknown whether this is true or not, but this is what Tupac believed, and that's what severed their friendship. He later on went to explain that he felt as though they had to be responsible because you're the big guys in the city. I'm in your city. I'm in a building that you invited me to. How is it possible that there are people who are unknown inside a facility that you have total control over that were able to shoot me and rob me? So that was Tupac's logic. It kind of makes sense. That's what severed their friendship, not what started the war. What started the war, Tupac was on trial for, I think he was on trial for sodomy, sexual assault at that particular time. I'm not sure. But he was on trial. He got shot the night before, checked himself out of the hospital to go make sure that he stood trial to prove his innocence. And that's where Tupac's kind of legend really started to grow because people saw a certain level of rebellion and toughness in him that they could identify with. So anyway, Tupac stood trial. And in his belief that he was set up, Tupac released a diss track called "Hit 'Em Up," and it is by far one of the grimiest rap disses of all time. I'll recite some of the lyrics, but he is in no way being subtle. He is very direct, very blunt, very brash, and he is definitely dropping names. So the song starts with Tupac saying, "I ain't got no motherfucking friends," and then he has his classic little chuckle. "That's why I fucked your bitch, you fat motherfucker." And then that's when the beat drops, and you're kind of like, "Whoa, whoa, we ain't heard nothing like this since NWA broke up." You know what I mean? Because this and even this is even more aggressive than anything that was said in that diss track. And then his verse goes on to say, "Well, first off, fucked your bitch and the click you claim, West Side till we ride, come equipped with game. You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife. We bust on bad boys, niggas fucked for life. Plus, Puffy try to see me rip arms. I rip Biggie Smalls and Junior Mafia, some mark ass bitches." And I won't say any more of the song, but in those first few bars, Tupac was letting you know exactly how he felt about every particular person involved in that situation, and it sent shockwaves through the rap industry. The first time I heard it, I was getting out of tech school, not tech school. I'm sorry. I was leaving San Antonio from basic training in the Air Force, and I remember you can't play your music until your bus gets past the gate and is officially off base, because people have done it before the bus departed and they recycled their ass back a couple weeks. So I remember hearing it and I was like, sheesh, this is tough. And to me, Hit 'em Up is among one of, like I said, one of the best diss tracks ever. It's up there with Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, which you're probably more familiar with. Kendrick Lamar's Euphoria, which to me might be the greatest diss track of all time. Um, Ether by Nas, and No Vaseline by Ice Cube. Those are the other diss tracks that are along the lines of Hit 'em Up. That even that still didn't start the war. It was known that there was a beef, but that didn't start the war. When Biggie Smalls got news of this song, there was a track that he had written called Who Shot Ya. Allegedly, it was written before the events of that night at Quad Studio. Nobody can confirm or deny this, but allegedly it was written before those events. But it was kind of ironic that the name of the song is Who Shot Ya, and Tupac got shot in a studio you invited him to by some unknown assailants. Just saying. P. Diddy Combs is graduated. He's a HBCU of Howard University alum. So for the homecoming, he brought Biggie Smalls there to the homecoming, and the crowd was growing restless. Okay, they wanted him to perform the song "Who Shot Ya," which they had heard, and they were just waiting for him to perform it, because it was almost like, we're in support of you because you're from New York and New York is here on the East Coast. He was advised not to do it. However, he gave in to and succumbed to what the crowd wanted him to do, and he performed the song Who Shot Ya at the Howard homecoming, and that was almost a confirmation that Tupac needed, that you are responsible for me being shot at Quad Studios that night, and that is what started the war, East Coast versus West Coast, which was really more like LA versus New York City, which was really more of Tupac versus Big. Tupac was murdered in Las Vegas after a Mike Tyson fight. He was taken to the hospital where he passed away 7 days later. And as a huge Tupac fan, I still to this day, at 44 years old, don't believe that Tupac is dead. I still don't believe it. Tupac, especially the way he died, it was very cryptic. A lot of messages left even after his